Hi, I'm Phil Harball, and this is my 78th video about British science fiction writers. It's been 6 months since my last video, but there are several reasons for this. Basically, I've completed my original objective, which was to tell the inside story on British science fiction publishing in the post-war decade, following which I then explored the legacy for the main authors who had emerged, notably John Russell Fearn and E.C. Tubb, and my own involvement in their careers after I became a magazine editor and literary agent. I based many of my videos on my 2011 book, Vultures of the Void, The Legacy. So going forward, my future videos will be mainly based on newly published books and magazine stories arising from my activities as a literary agent. The current hiatus was largely due to my having simply taken several months out to write another book myself, The Multi-Man, a literary biography of John Russell Fearn. I'd actually been planning this book since about 1988, when I first commissioned this Ron Turner cover for it. But I kept discovering more and more new pseudonyms and details of Fearn's life, and I wanted the book to be complete. So I kept putting it off until I could be sure that I'd discovered everything. But then came the unexpected death of my friend John Lawrence in 2023. There's John. Now, John had almost finished his own book, a biography of artist Ron Turner. And John's family sent me his manuscript and asked me to steer the book to publication. This I eventually achieved, and The Fantastic Art of Ron Turner was finally published by Tellus Books in 2025. See the book, and some people may remember that my last video was in fact a review of this book, The Fantastic Art of Ron Turner. Now the book is sold out. The original hardcover edition is sold out, but the publisher have reissued it in this splendid new paperback edition, which is available online from Amazon and from the publisher. I need hardly add that it's highly recommended. Now, contemplating my own mortality, John had been a deal younger than I, and the realization that if I died, there was no one who could complete my own book on Fearn, and that compelled me to take a few months out to finally finish the book. The Multi-Man is now finished, the fruits of more than 60 years of research. It runs to 175,000 words, 99,000 words for the biography, with a 76,000 word annotated bibliography. Naturally, I first offered the book to Tellus, but they passed on it. They told me, "I'm sure you're right that there is great potential there for an updated, illustrated version of your John Russell Fearn bibliography. I'm not sure, though, that this is a project that would be right for Tellus to take on. Our coffee table style books generally focus on the work of particular artists rather than on authors whose works have been illustrated by many different artists in a variety of styles, which I think might be more difficult to market. Aside from that, these books, of course, take a lot of time and effort to get together. And we already have a very full schedule lined up for the next couple of years. So it's not something we could think about until probably 2027 or even 2028. As a small press with only limited resources, we have to take a long way, we have to plan a long way ahead. Well, that's fair enough. So I therefore turned to an American publisher, Pulp Adventures Press. Now, they've been publishing my clients for some time, and here we see just 4 of their many titles. I'm delighted to report that Pulp Adventures have agreed to publish The Multi-Man. However, such a large book will be a big undertaking for a small press, so the book will have to be done in stages. It's hoped that production will take about a year, finishing in late 2026. I'll be reporting on progress in future videos. But meanwhile, I'd like to report on some of the excellent stuff that Pulp Adventures are currently putting out, beginning with their latest issue of their flagship magazine, Pulp Adventures 48. This is the latest issue of their flagship magazine, Pulp Adventures 48. We see it here with the lead novelette by John Russell Fearn. The uncredited front cover was created with artificial intelligence, working from a design created by publisher Rich Harvey, himself an artist. That goes too for the interior illustrations, apart from a couple by Ron Turner, which we'll be looking at later. The Last Secret Weapon was one of Fearn's best stories, and it had 2 main influences. The romantic concept of the deluge being caused by a descending mantle of vapours from the heavens was drawn from an old book originally published in 1905, The Deluge and Its Causes, or The Misread Record, by Professor Isaac Newton Vail, a tour de force of biblical pseudoscience. Fearn discovered this rare 1921 small paperback edition in 1938. There we see Fearn's signature when he got this book in December 1938. And Isaac Newton Vail wrote prolifically on subjects of biblical pseudoscience. In this case, he was explaining the deluge, which resulted in Noah's Ark. There's a good professor there. Now, this book so impressed Fearn that in 1953 he wrote a novel, Z Formations, and the subplot in this novel included an explanation for the deluge, which we see there at the bottom of the page. I think if that'll show up on the camera. It says, for the basic facts in his fictional conception of the deluge, the author gratefully acknowledges Professor Isaac Newton Vail's book, The Deluge and Its Cause, or The Misread Record. The second source was revealed in a letter Fearn wrote to his friend and fellow writer William F. Temple, dated 11th of December 1939. Just converted Borges, the film, into a deluge yarn of 20,000 words. Don Levy becomes Ox, a brutal soldier in a concentration camp. A fine sense of duty, no sense of mercy, and with his pet phrase, no more, no less. It's the best since The Man from Hell. Title, unless changed, is Mountain of Survival, in which Everest is a new Ararat, following the deluge, produced by a self-sinking bomb used in the present war. Theme, if a stone sinks through water, why can't a bomb sink through solids by magnetism swing the poles of the atoms to give it a comparatively free passage. It's a Lulu. But Fern used only the germs of film ideas he picked up and then embroidered them in his own ingenious style. Mountain of Survival was eventually published as the last secret weapon in the April 1941 Marvel stories under his Polton Cross alias. Let's see the story here. Bear with me. It was illustrated by Alex Schomburg. Now, as we can see from the contents page here, Pulp Adventures contains 5 stories, of which the new stories are Mutiny and Light of Reason, and the 3 classic reprints are by my agency clients E.C. Tubb, John Burke and Shelley Smith. Now, one of the strengths of the magazine is that they give lots of little behind-the-scenes articles, the story behind the story, extra features, not just straight reprints, but the background to them. Nice illustrations as well. Now, if we look on that page there, we'll see that the visiting celebrity Tubb story has never before been reprinted, but it's especially interesting because it was based on real-life incidents and people that Tubb knew. In 1953, the year of the UK coronation, a science fiction convention was held in London, and amongst the attendees was Bea Mahaffey, the beautiful managing editor of Other Worlds magazine, an American magazine. And she created a tremendous impression on the male British authors and fans, who all developed a crush on her. And this is humorously related in Tubb's story, which also pops the back cover, which we see there. A little bit of British and American science fiction history. And amongst the other stories, John Burke's story, you see there, The Handfast, is a modern ghost story, of which Burke was a master at. And it's followed by Death of an Artist, by a famous author, Shelley Smith. And this was one of our very first stories, originally published in 1945 by Gerald G. Swan. So altogether, Pulp Adventures is, as you can see, is a very attractive magazine, well worth getting. And you'll find it easily available online from the publisher or from Amazon, along with many back issues. Now then, in 1952, Fern rewrote and lengthened Last Secret Weapon, adding a Fortean subplot involving Martians directing the actions of mankind by fomenting world war to decimate Earth prior to their invasion. It was first published in book form as The G-Bomb, as by Vargo Staton. Now, the quality of the novel, which utilised the original story essentially unchanged, was quickly recognised. It was translated, appearing as a French paperback in 1954 in the famous Anticipation series, which we see there, and in a German edition in 1960. In 1974, it was republished in France as an adult 166-page paperback graphic novel, which we see there. Graphic novel. And then in 1979, the novel was next translated into Italian, appearing in a prestigious hardcover edition, which we see here, with an introduction by the famous Italian author and critic Ugo Malagudi. Then, in 1988, yet another Italian publisher issued it in paperback. And so it's a double novel. The first novel was Fern's Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then The G-Bomb is Night on the World is the Italian edition. That was in the back of the book. So there's two novels in that edition. Quite a collector's item. But that was not the end of the reprinting of the book, because in 2010, I myself revised The G-Bomb, replacing the Martians with interstellar aliens for publication in both the US by Borgo Wildside and also the UK's Linford Mystery Library. Nice blurb on the back there, which you can see. The international appeal of the powerful Deluge storyline can be seen in the published illustrations in the German, French, and American editions. Let's have a look at them here. The German, the French, and the American editions. There we see the German artist illustrating the Noah's Ark scenes. And there, in the French graphic novel, even better illustrations of the same action scenes. And then finally, you see the American version. There you go. There's the Ron Turner illustrations I was talking about. These are original illustrations, published for the first time in this book. So, as we've seen there, the G-Bomb has gone through no less than 8 book editions in 5 countries across 7 decades. So I felt it appropriate that its fine origin story should be rescued from obscurity. Hence, its reprinting in Pulp Adventures under the author's real name.